Hi everybody, welcome to the Spring 2022 Modality Survey results. Thank you for taking the survey, thank you for giving the survey to your students, and let's get underway. Before I start sharing the results, there's two important things I want to share because these will come up in my thinking when we think about summer and fall quarters. First, I want to acknowledge that we surveyed our existing students and therefore our survey did not include the entire group of potential students who we currently do not serve. When COVID-19 started, our enrollment dropped by about 20%. Since then, we seem to have gone back up. We've gained some of those students back, but I just want to sort of acknowledge that there's a big number of students that we want to serve, that it's important that we reach, that the school wants us to serve, but that we're not able to include in the survey. So when we look at the results, take everything with a grain of salt and keep in mind the students who we aren't reaching. Now, one thing you could say is, John, one of those reasons that those students left was because during the pandemic, we offered all remote, and since then we've offered hybrid. Don't those students want in-person classes? Well, two thoughts on that. First, it's been 2 years of pandemic, so I think student choices have probably changed quite a bit. But more importantly, the second bullet on the screen. In the fall, students started to tell us that they wanted to come back to the classroom, so we offered hybrid classes, but those classes didn't fill as much as our remote classes are filling. So that's the second point I want you to keep in mind. We're going to see students start asking for more hybrid, and really they're going to start asking for more in-person classes. I want to embrace that. I want to listen to student voices, but I also want to take into account what students actually choose to do when the moment comes. And currently, even though they tell us that they want some sort of in-person instruction, they're not choosing it. So we have to keep that in mind. All right, so first couple slides are just going to be about who took the survey. This slide here shows you how it is broken down across ESL level, and let me just quickly say the response by level looks pretty much right. Looks like we got stronger than expected responses in ESL 1. ESL 4 probably could have been a little bit stronger, but overall, if you're asking, did we reach the right people? Did we survey students pretty well? I'm going to say, yeah, we did a good job, and thank you. Here's another look at how we surveyed our students and who took the survey, and that's the percentage of who did remote or hybrid, or the percentage who were on main campus and who took remote classes or were at New Holly or Georgetown. These numbers more or less look right. There's a few things in here that catch my attention. If you're curious about them, shoot me an email. I can tell you more, but overall I think it looks okay. And then more importantly, what I also have on the bottom of the slide is when I get to showing you the results, we're going to break them down by these different groups, by the hybrid main campus students, by the remote students, by New Holly, by Georgetown. Therefore, it's not so important that they look together as a group because we're going to look at them piece by piece by piece anyway. So again, overall, survey looks good, kind of important. I also did a faculty survey, and simple enough, thank you, 17 people took the survey. I don't have a breakdown of whether you were full-time or part-time or where you were teaching, but 17 people seems like a pretty good turnout, so thanks. All right, I now want to get into the several slides that are going to show you results. So to prepare you for that, let me just tell you, I have prepared 8 different slides. We have main campus mornings. We have essentially main campus remote, and I say essentially because obviously remote classes take place remotely, but I'm calling it main campus remote. New Holly and Georgetown. So we have those 4 places, and we have them for summer and we have them for fall. So 8 slides. On every slide you're going to see 2 charts, student results and faculty results. And what I'm going to ask you to do on each slide, I'm going to try to point out to you, is obviously look at the first choice, because that is where we're going to assign the classes. But pay attention to the second choice too. And I bring that up because occasionally we are able to offer 2 sections of the same class at the same time. And in those cases, we might start to look at offering one section in one modality and the other section in another. This is taking place now in spring quarter. On main campus mornings, we have an ESL 3, and one of them is hybrid and one of them is remote. So pay attention to that second modality because that might be an opportunity for us to try and see if students are actually going to sign up for what they consider their second choice. All right, here we go. The first slide I'm starting with is summer, and then I'm going to begin with main campus mornings. Just to give you a quick look, what you're going to see in the pie chart is blue will always be hybrid, green will always be remote, and pink will always be in person. And if you look at this, what you see is hybrid is the big preference among students and an even bigger preference among faculty. So main campus mornings for the summer are going to be hybrid. When you look at that second choice, it's interesting to see how many hybrid students are saying they actually would prefer in person. So there's a significant growing chunk, and you'll notice that that's different than the second choice of faculty. So that's kind of the notes on the second choice. Let's take a look at main campus evening remote classes, and we're going to see something kind of different. So summer remote evenings, again, green in this case means remote, and what you see is 81% of students who are currently taking remote classes with us this spring want summer to stay remote. This is different than the 62% of faculty who say they're ready to try hybrid. So what we're going to do here is go back to that topic that I mentioned on the second slide. We know that students may tell us that they want hybrid or in-person classes, but we know particularly when we offered hybrid, students didn't sign up. So here I have two different voices. I have students saying let's go remote, and we have faculty saying let's go hybrid. I'm going to say we're sticking with remote. And that's because students' behaviors tend to be that they want to stay with the remote classes, and I'm not ready to make that change yet. So that's summer remote. Let's look at New Holly. New Holly, again, you're going to see something similar to what we saw with main campus mornings. Hybrid is the winner among students, and hybrid is the winner among faculty. But you're also going to see something similar that we saw with main campus mornings. In-person is the second biggest among students, and it's starting to get pretty big. So New Holly students, 42% are saying they wouldn't mind, they'd prefer, they want summer to be 100% in person. Still not big enough that it's going to overtake hybrid. So summer at New Holly will remain hybrid, but pay attention to what's happening with that pink chunk of the pie. Let's look at Georgetown. Summer at Georgetown, again, is going to stay hybrid based on what the students are saying. My percentage on there is wrong. 71% of students say they want summer to be hybrid. In the slide narrative says 94%, but either way that's correct. And then you'll see that I didn't survey faculty about their preferences for summer at Georgetown because it's just two faculty. What I'll do is work with those two faculty to figure out what modality that works well, but I want to sort of honor and acknowledge that students are telling us it should be hybrid. Okay, that's summer. We're going to shift on to what we learned about fall. Fall main campus mornings, you're going to see again, hybrid still prevails. 55% of students say they want hybrid, 80% of faculty say they want hybrid. But again, notice what's happening with the pink. In-person actually goes up. In the previous slide for summer main campus morning classes, they were at 37% of students wanted in-person. That's now up to 43%. And what you see among the faculty is remote has disappeared entirely. So watch that second piece because that is important whenever we run two sections of the same class. And currently that second piece for fall main campus mornings is starting to look pretty much like in person. We're starting to see pink. Fall remote evenings, again, students still remain saying that they want remote. Faculty, again, willing to try hybrid. Like we talked about with summer, the same is going to hold true in fall. We're going to stick with the student preference of remote because we know students will enroll in those, and they've continued to show a pattern of being willing to enroll in those remote classes stronger than hybrid or in person. New Holly, it's really interesting to me. Students, it's a coin toss. I almost said 50-50, but as you see on the chart, it's actually 49-49-2. But they're evenly split between in-person and hybrid, and 61% of faculty want fall to be hybrid. So this is a case where the question really ends up being pressed a bit of, are we ready to offer in-person classes? I'm going to go back to what I said at the beginning again. Students have often said that they want in-person instruction, but then they don't sign up for it. So for New Holly, I'm going to keep it for fall as hybrid. But what we do with a second section that might happen at New Holly, that will be something we'll continue to watch. And we need to be prepared for the possibility that a second section at New Holly could be in person. So let me just kind of clarify what I'm talking about there. Currently this spring, we run 2 sections of ESL 1 at New Holly, and they are both hybrid. By fall, if we happen to be running 2 sections of level 1 at New Holly, we want to have a serious conversation about one of those being 100% in person. Let's move on. Georgetown, similar to what we've seen before, among students, hybrid is still winning. And again, I didn't survey the faculty. One particular note about Georgetown that I think is interesting is that there are some students who are asking for remote evening classes, and we offer remote evening classes. So this gets back to that example of students being complicated just as people are complicated and faculty are complicated and deans are complicated. So even though these students have access to an evening remote class, they're still choosing the Georgetown hybrid class, probably because they like the instructor, maybe because they're carpooling, maybe because their friends are in that class. But I just kind of want to acknowledge that there is a chunk of students who say they want evening remote, and we offer evening remote, and that just reflects the complexity of student choices. All right. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide because it simply summarizes everything I've said before. I will just reiterate, and I apologize that it's covered up a little bit, but what I have at the bottom of the slide says that if we have enough enrollment to add sections, in other words, if we have 2 sections of level 1 or 2 sections of level 3, we're going to look at adding that second section as the second most popular modality. So that's part of the discussion that we'll have more information on as we add those sections and as we make decisions. But that's the summary for fall, and if you want to spend a little bit of time on it, I encourage you to pause the video. But I'm going to move on now to barriers. So one of the things we asked was about student barriers. And again, I apologize. I will just tell you a little bit about what's on the screen that my picture is currently covering. But as far as student barriers go, we identified actually 5 barriers. I take care of family members or a child, and I lump those 2 together as caretaker. I work or I have 2 jobs, and I lump those together as work. I need help with the computer, and that's tech help. And the last one that's covered by my little picture there is outside of Seattle. So we asked, do you live outside of Seattle? Do you have a travel issue? And that's what that one is. 196 students took the survey, and they could mark more than one answer. So I just want to point out that of the things that we identified as potential student barriers, the 2 biggest were I'm taking care of someone in the home, either a child or another adult, or I work, and that might be 1 or 2 jobs. And so what we want to do is look at those students and ask ourselves, well, are we making the right choice as far as remote, in-person, or hybrid classes that meets their needs? And here's what's interesting, and it's not different than what we saw in the fall. Starting with caretakers, these again are people who say, hey, I'm taking care of kids or I'm taking care of a member of my family. Well, what do they want for summer and what do they want for fall? Again, you can pause the video if you want to look at this more closely, but what you're seeing is it's kind of a third, a third, a third. It's kind of a wash. There's not one big powerful trend that tells us people with kids need remote. And I give that example because for me that's a little bit of myth busting. It's similar to what I saw in the fall. I was expecting people who take care of kids to want remote. And I've heard many stories of people in their Zoom classes with children on their laps. With all of that still being true, I just want to kind of acknowledge that here's the student voices as far as the survey goes, and those students who are taking care of kids or taking care of adults, they are not necessarily always asking for remote classes. They're asking for in-person and they're asking for hybrid. The same thing ends up being true, more or less, for people who work. Students who work, now you are going to see in summer a pretty strong 48%, but that 48% is hybrid. So once again, we have, at least in my head, a little bit of myth busting that students who work want remote classes because they're easier. They probably are easier. They probably are better for their student schedules, but you will notice that in summer, only 21% of students who are working say they want remote. At fall, that does jump up to 39%, but at no point is this more than half. So when we say things like we need these classes for students who work, I just want to caution that that's not what students are telling us. And again, perhaps this gets into the complexity of what students want versus what they say they want, Perhaps there's a lot of students with kids or a lot of students who are working who are going to say, yeah, I would love to do in person, but when the time comes, they sign up for remote because they can't, because of childcare issues or because of work. That all might be true. That's all part of the mess of what we're dealing with. But I did want to take a little bit of time just to show you the barriers and whether or not it told us anything about our choices as far as the modality, and it really doesn't. It's really just kind of a wash. All right, thank you again for sticking with me if you made it this far into the video. Hope you're having a great spring. Preference forms are actually due very soon for summer, and the preferences for fall will be following shortly. Hope you're doing well. Have a good day. Bye-bye.